Whenever I'm writing new recipes or thinking of things to make, I love to keep it seasonal. My sister was in town and we went for a walk in the park after lunch and it was really nice, but it's a gorgeous spring day. And walking through the park, feeling the warm weather, I was like, you know, I want something lemon, something lavender. Lemon and lavender are such a great flavor combo. And there's really so many different desserts you can add those flavors to. So I thought, wouldn't shortbread cookies be nice? Shortbread cookies are very, very basic and simple to make, which makes them super easy to get creative with when it comes to flavors. And that's one of the fantastic parts about baking is you have a great base recipe and then the flavor possibilities are endless. So this is a very basic shortbread recipe. I have some all-purpose flour and some salt that I'm just mixing together here in this bowl, and we're gonna set them aside. Now, keeping in mind that I wanna make these lavender and lemon flavored, I'm gonna think about how I wanna incorporate those in there. So lavender, which I have some here, it's a bag of lavender flowers. You can order them online. Some stores might have them as well. It smells amazing, but it comes in these little flowers like this. And it's extremely potent. So you definitely don't wanna add too much because it'll taste like soap, pretty much. But when it comes to incorporating lavender into desserts, it takes an additional step or two because you can't just put the flowers in there. One thing you can do that I really like to do is actually make lavender sugar, which just means blending your sugar with the lavender in there to break it up and really scent the sugar with the lavender flavor. Now, typically for this shortbread recipe, I use confectioner sugar or icing sugar. And I'm gonna show you a cool little trick here. You can actually make your own confectioner sugar if you can't find any or don't have any. To make your own, you take the same measurement of granulated sugar that you would confectioners. For every cup of granulated sugar you're adding, add 1 tablespoon of cornstarch. So since I had a half a cup of sugar, I'm gonna be adding a half a tablespoon of cornstarch. And normally if you're just making confectioner sugar, you would blend this together. You do need a pretty powerful blender. I'm using this single serve portion of my Ninja blender over there because it can focus more on the sugar. And you would just blend it until it's powdery and boom, instant powdered sugar. It's really freaking cool. The first time I did that, I worked at Williams-Sonoma actually. I did that and the people were like,
oh my God, how did you do that?
But since we want to flavor this with lavender, I'm gonna add a half a teaspoon of lavender leaves, which doesn't sound like a lot, but like I said, these are powerful, these are potent. So especially when we blend them up, the oils are gonna release and it's gonna be pretty strong. So I don't want my cookies to be too overly flavored with lavender, otherwise they're gonna be kind of unpleasant to eat. So I'm just gonna blitz this up in my blender. It's so cool, it smells like lavender, it is amazing. And that way there's no big chunks of lavender either, it's completely smooth. And to this, I'm gonna be adding some room temperature unsalted butter. I always use unsalted, and for this it does need to be softened. So 10 tablespoons, 1 1/4 sticks. The written recipe will include metrics, and there is a link directly to that in the description below. Takes you to my website where all my recipes are, my cookbook, my merchandise, all that good stuff. I'm gonna use my hand mixer for this just to get this nice, light, and fluffy. And to this, I'm just gonna add a little bit of vanilla extract. We don't want the only flavor to be lavender. We want a complementary vanilla flavor in there as well. So about a teaspoon of vanilla extract. And I like the size of this recipe because it doesn't make a ton of cookies. It makes about 10, which is perfect for a few people. But what's really easy about this recipe is you can easily double or triple it to make however many cookies you need for however many people. So for a springtime picnic in the park, this is a great recipe to make because you can make a ton of them. And the boobity bobbity bee. Sometimes I wonder if I have mental issues, but it's okay. Now this is how easy this recipe is. We have our butter, we have our sugar, our lavender sugar, and our vanilla. And all we're gonna do is add this all-purpose flour and salt into the bowl. That's it. Just mix it till the dough comes together. Sina Garden would say, clear the decks. And this dough is absolutely gorgeous. It's actually got a slight tint to it thanks to that lavender. So I'm just gonna collect it into a disc. And I'm gonna refrigerate this for about an hour. Because we're gonna be cutting and baking these, you want them to hold their shape. And if the dough's too soft, they might risk spreading out a little bit. So cover with plastic, refrigerate for about an hour until firm. So one way I like to roll this out that keeps it pretty neat is to roll it between sheets of parchment paper. So this dough is gorgeous. It's nice and chilled. It's not too firm. You don't want it too firm, otherwise it'll probably crack when we roll it. But it's okay. If you want to make this in advance, you can actually chill it up to a few days in advance. Then just let it sit at room temperature, say for about 20 to 30 minutes before you try and roll and cut it. So I'm just gonna lightly flour this. Don't want too much flour because that can dry out the dough. Just a light dusting is fine. I'm gonna put my circle of dough on top of there. So I'm just gonna gently kind of press it out first on this sheet of parchment here. Just kind of roll it out gently. You don't want to roll it too thin. So I'm gonna put my other sheet of parchment on top. Just gently roll it out this other way. And I'm rolling it to about a 1/4 inch thickness. Flip it over, gently peel off that first layer of parchment here. And we're gonna cut these. I'm just gonna cut classic circles. And if you don't have a cookie cutter, just use a glass. It's doing the same thing. So just cut with your glass like that. And these are gonna be a bit bigger, so I may get a few less cookies, but this should make 8 cookies of this size. So this is actually more of a small batch recipe, which is why I really like it. But the good news is you can scale this recipe up and easily double everything if you need to make more. Gently get these off, and on the sheets lined with parchment paper, these are gonna go. And these shouldn't need a ton of space actually on the sheets because they're not supposed to spread out. Got my first 4 on there, just gonna roll and recut these. And they're gonna go into the oven 350 Fahrenheit for about 8 to 10 minutes until just lightly golden brown around the edges and on the bottoms. It's a very exciting time. It is time to make the glaze for these cookies. So I know I grabbed the lemon from before, so we're gonna be adding the lemon into the glaze, but I had a really good idea while the cookies were in the oven and cooling. We're gonna make London fog cookies. If you don't know what a London fog is, it's Earl Grey tea that's steeped with lavender, and then you have steamed milk added to it. I'm pretty much just adding the lemon because I want to, but I have some Earl Grey tea here. I used 2 tea bags and a normal cup of tea, and I let it steep for like 10 minutes to get it really strong. So that's gonna be the main liquid I'm gonna be using in my glaze. I have just a cup of confectioner's sugar here, and I'm just gonna get this lemon zested. I'd say about half to the zest, because lemon zest is pretty strong, and this isn't a whole lot of glaze, so I don't need tons of it, otherwise it's gonna be a little too intense. So I'm gonna add that into my confectioner's sugar. And then I'm gonna start with a tablespoon basically of this tea and add it as I see fit. So I'm gonna mix that in. Obviously I need more. I'm gonna add another tablespoon. Okay, we need another tablespoon, so that's 3. And I think that'll probably be fine. Yep, sweet. And this recipe actually makes about 10 cookies that are like 4 inches in diameter, so great serving size, not too many. Just gonna have my cooled cookies. They need to be cooled all the way, otherwise that glaze is just gonna run right off of those puppies. I always do the prettiest ones first, so I'm actually like picking and choosing which cookies I wanna glaze first. That looks good for now. We'll do 5, maybe. Oh, what is wrong with me? So we'll do 6 of them, I'd say. Gonna have a nice platter here to put these cookies on. Just gonna dip the tops of the cookies in this glaze, letting the excess drip off. Do a little circular motion like this so we have a nice, even, I mean, that is beautiful. And I mean, just look at how pretty these are. You see the lemon zest in there? It's slightly tinted from the tea. I'm gonna dip myself a fresh one in there. Wow. That's a whole lot of flavor going on there. What's even better is I have a cup of tea right here to go with it. You absolutely need to try this. These are incredible. Very easy, very quick. The full written recipe is on my website with metrics included, so be sure to check out the link in the description for that, along with the link to my cookbook, my merchandise, my social media. Be sure to hit the subscribe button, the notification bell, leave me a thumbs up, and some comments down below. Until next time, this is Bake It with AJ. Seriously shook at how good these are. Y'all, I'm telling you, this is gonna be a problem.